we will do the best we can do and see which. Yep, we'll see the picture. Yep.
Okay, we're going to have a go at it. Good afternoon and welcome to Kempsey Shire Council's public forum. Its purpose is to allow members of the public to express their views on particular items on tomorrow's council meeting agenda. Councillors, welcome and thank each presenter for taking the time and effort to present to us. I remind all people attending this meeting that it is being webcast on YouTube with audio and vision. A recording of the meeting is available on the internet and is required to be available for 12 months. Private recordings, including taking photographs by members of the public gallery, are not allowed. This ruling is to maintain the integrity of the meeting proceedings. Please ensure all devices, like mobile phones, are on silent mode. Again, on behalf of the Council, I welcome all people to the public gallery observing live and on the internet to this public forum. I acknowledge that this meeting is on Dunghutti land. We pay respects to elders past and present. We also welcome any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people with us. I now call for any conflicts of interest declarations from councillors or staff. Now, I have a declaration on item 10.5, a planning proposal for Yarrahapini. It's a non-pecuniary, non-significant, as I work with the applicant's father. And Councillor Patterson, please.
Yeah, I'd like to declare non-pecuniary, non-significant interest about the Merrill Minute, as I live within 5 k's of the actual airstrip. And I don't think I need to declare the fact that I'm on the traffic committee, but I also am on the committee. We're already accepting possibly.
Councillor Patterson, are you declaring a conflict on the traffic committee or not?
Not really. I've been a member of the traffic committee for 13 years.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. People couldn't quite hear that, and he was not declaring an interest at all in that particular matter. I'm sorry, people couldn't hear. I now present to you the public forum. Today we have councillors Kinney Ring. People just wave so people know. Apology from Councillor Scott Butterfield. Can't be here today, but he hopes to be here tomorrow. Council staff in attendance are Mr. Craig Milburn, the General Manager on my right, Mr. Wes Trotter, Director of Utilities, Mr. Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Mr. Steve Mitchell, Director Corporate and Commercial, Mr. Daniel Thorogood, Group Manager Governance and Information Services. Okay. So I welcome everyone, and we're here to listen. I'd now ask the General Manager, Mr. Craig Milburn, to outline the guidelines for this public forum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Council's Code of Meeting Practice, each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is to be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting that they have applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the Chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the Chairperson, the speaker will not further be heard. A councillor, including the Chairperson, may, through the Chairperson, ask questions of the Speaker following the address at the public forum. Questions to a Speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put to them and answers by speakers to each question are limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of council, councillors, or the council staff. The General Manager or the nominee may, with the concurrence of the Chairperson, address the Council for up to 5 minutes in response to an address to the Council at a public forum. After the address, questions and answers have been finalised. When addressing the Council, speakers at public forums must comply with this code and other relevant codes and policies and procedures of Council. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the Council's Code of Conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the Chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in conduct of the type referred to above, the Chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the Speaker fails to comply with the Chairperson's request, the Chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We have 7 speakers this afternoon. I remind each speaker you are presenting information which may benefit councillors in becoming better informed on a particular decision they have to make at the council meeting tomorrow. Our speakers are Rachel Bates, Phil Millard, Gary Phillips, Rachel McDonald, Jeff Clark, Dick Pearson, and Adam Ulrich. Our first speaker is Rachel Bates. If you could come to the microphone lectern, please. Thank you. When you start speaking, your 5 minutes timer starts. Thank you.
Councillors, hello. I'm Rachel. I'm a teacher of water safety and water awareness. I live and work in this community and I have taught at Gladstone Pool. Most of us here would have had the pleasure and memories of attending lessons or taking children or grandchildren to the local pool. Over 600 residents and visitors of the Macleay Valley signed the petition and strongly opposed Kempsey Shire Council's draft aquatic strategy and the recommendation to close the Lower Macleay Memorial Baths. None of us swim teachers were consulted in this process, despite the strategy claiming it engaged in the key users groups. We are fundamental key users. According to the Council's papers, 336 people responded to that Your Say survey regarding the aquatic strategy, which states the intimate timeframe as June 2025, closed Gladstone Pool. 83.6% do not agree the strategy should be adopted. Our community volunteers from Gladstone, Smithtown and surrounds had foresight in the 1950s to provide a safer swimming option than the unsafe river, recognised the need to promote water safety for as long as the river flowed through the towns, meaning forever. They raised funds and built Gladstone Pool. At the opening ceremony, the police sergeant quoted, "It's a wonderful day." He, having himself pulled 10 dead children out of the river, all aged under 9. My colleagues and I are now teaching 8 and 9-year-olds to swim for their very first time, especially after a generation missed water safety education due to COVID. Our pool provides learn to swim classes, enabled schools to conduct swimming and sports events, and gives exercise and socialisation opportunities for the greater community. Closing this facility would put our community at risk of not meeting national water safety benchmarks, and this is essential for those who reside near rivers, in flood-prone and coastal areas. The Royal Life Saving Society report for New South Wales summer 2022-23 finds 36 drownings so far for this short period, 14% of those in rivers and 16% during a heat wave. With the predicted climate causing more heat waves, this could be a perfect storm. Our children may not read the river current or the fast-flowing water. They may not see submerged rocks, snags, trees, or dead cows before jumping from wharves to cool off. The local pool is a far safer option. If closed, our river community will lose a safe pool and our water safety behaviours will decline. Gladstone Pool was built to save lives, not to make a profit. You cannot put a price on a child or anyone's life. We call upon Council to fully investigate measures to keep this important community asset operating, to work with private sectors to assist in raising capital, to lobby state and federal governments for grants, to explore how sport clubs might work with Gladstone Aqua facility, to keep the Gladstone and Smithtown communities safe. Crescent Head and Southwest Rocks have alternate water options in patrolled beaches, creeks and bays. They are affiliated with Royal Life Saving Clubs. Crescent Head and Southwest Rocks pools are in reasonable condition with ongoing 5 to 10-year contracts. Their country clubs could be approached to support the cost of these pools, especially as Southwest Rocks Country Club owns the land that pool sits in. This will lessen the burden on the council. There is no mention of the actual condition of Gladstone Pool. We believe it's sufficient to serve for years to come. Gladstone Sport and Rec Club could be approached, potentially to operate the pool with the cooperation of council when the current contract ends. We call upon the council to support the essential facility in our community. Long live Gladstone Pool. Do what is right, not what is easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bates. May I have some questions for you? You don't want to have any questions? No, we want to ask you questions. Okay, righto, thank you very much. It's your right to not answer questions. Thank you very much. Mr. Phil Millard is our second speaker. Thank you, Mr. Millard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Point of clarification before I start. Am I able to ask you to read the petition?
No, that's not part of the
For the sake of the people in the audience, they need to probably hear the petition, I would think, and it will take more than my 5 minutes will be severely compromised if I read the petition to the people, and I think they should hear the petition.
Yeah, we won't time that. You could do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So just for the people in the audience and for the councillors that may not have read the petition, it states, we the residents and visitors of the Macleay Valley strongly oppose Kempsey Shire Council's draft aquatic strategy in regards to the proposed recommendation to close the Lower Macleay Memorial Baths, Gladstone Pool. We call upon Council to fully investigate measures to keep this important community infrastructure operating with a view to improving the current facility, not closing it. Our pool provides learn to swim classes, enables schools to conduct swimming and sporting events, and provides exercise and socialisation opportunities for the greater community. Closing this facility could put our community at risk of not meeting national swimming and water safety benchmarks. And this is essential for communities who reside near rivers, flood-prone and coastal areas. We call upon Council to support this essential facility in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And you would like to present that petition to Council now?
Oh, yes, it's right here. It's appeared. So are we able to take pictures of this, of presenting it to you, Mr. Mayor, or how does that work?
Yep. Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Does someone want to join me? Lynn, maybe, or and Deb. Lynn, Deb, yeah. Actually, the committee. Let's walk it forward. Thank you. If we gather round, if we get a picture with the mayor,
It's just golf.
I'll get in.
It's golf. It's got to be done with permission of the mayor. So. Press the button. Yeah, press the button. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Today I speak.
Yes, you've now got 5 minutes, Mr. Millard. Thank
you. Today I speak from the heart because this petition sits at the heart of a community. So I've lost it. Fighting to keep its pool. A pool deeply embedded in the social fabric of the Lower Macleay. This petition was kept local. It wasn't online, and it reflects the authenticity of the community it speaks for. Every name has a story. learned to swim there, parents volunteered there, sold raffle tickets as a kid there, had my first kiss there even. Growing up in Gladstone, I can relate to many of these stories, except the kiss. And just like the stories these stories remain just as prominent today, and our pool remains as relevant today as the day it was built. I report this issue is deeply and widely felt because I visited the pool. I walked the streets, I heard the stories, I attended 2 community discussions, I engaged with over 700 people on Facebook and saw the signs go up around the villages, and I present to you today 1,607 signatures to you. You cannot evoke that type of community response if people don't care about an issue. I commend Council on the aquatic strategy. However, some feedback from the community conversations were the strategy seemed vague. We could not find anyone happy to drive to Maxwell. The people doing it had no choice. They were undertaking rehab. Another resident said she struggled to exit the pool because she was 7 weeks post-op from a knee replacement. This is because the pool ladders have never ever had a simple upgrade to include a 3rd step. Retrofitting costs around $650 for that. Older residents also reported access issues. Council's own website had Gladstone Pool listed as closed at the beginning of the season. Entry is cash only, so people have to find an ATM. Is there any wonder the strategy is noting low attendance? It's unethical to use low attendance rates as a reason to close our pool if a portion of the community can't A, easily purchase a ticket, B, access the water, or C, are misinformed that it's even open. Council must acknowledge and the decline and neglect is by their own doing. And now to consider ripping out a perfectly good piece of infrastructure that we know is functioning well post-COVID is a huge concern. Your report says Gladstone requires $91,200 over 10 years. That's a one-off cost of 33 cents per resident. And it does say over 10 years, not yearly. So I'm not unclear on that report. I'm hearing it's yearly. It doesn't say that in the report. Hardly a cost saving, but perhaps a fiscal tick on paper. Others asked if the swim costings for Gladstone Pool were undertaken during COVID. Who would know? Do we also apply a cost every time a child runs onto a sporting field, swims in a park, or borrows a book? I hope not. Whilst we debate closure, 2 Saturdays ago, Sydney's Lord Mayor threw open the gates of all pools in her LGA as temperatures soared. I refer to an article just 3 days ago titled "Fresh Call to be aware of Australia's secret killer ahead of the sweltering summer." It states community pools, libraries, shopping centres and cinemas must be kept accessible in a bid to stop Australia's secret killer, heatwaves. And local government was briefed by the National Coordination Mechanism on Friday. On heatwaves, Senator Watt said, "That's why we are working with local governments and the private sector to ensure that we are better prepared than before." There are 1,306 public pools in Australia and requiring ongoing maintenance. We are not alone, but our community will suffer alone if these pools are closed due to cost cutting. The community purchased the block back years ago for £500 and spent almost 7 years fundraising for that. So if you think about it, that's amazing. My mother was on $76 a week as a registered nurse in the early 70s. It's crazy. I'm not going to get to the rest of my report, which is a shame, but Rural Life Saving Strategies, $910 million annually would be the likely social, health and economic costs should 10% of aquatic facilities fail to be renewed by the end of this decade. There are many other reports that I recommend Council read as well before they make this decision. We should be asking how we meet our duty of care to ensure our community exceeds the national swimming and water safety benchmarks. Let's seek out new ideas. Let's look at how we can improve Gladstone Pool, ways of attracting more people there. We've got a stack of things if you want to come and talk to us. Please, I urge you, do not make our community pool a statistic tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Millard. Do we have any questions for Mr. Millard? He wishes to take any.
I'm happy to take questions.
Councillor Patterson, followed by Councillor Riddington.
Thank you, Mr. Millard, for your presentation. looking at a possible rate variation and council looking at needing to reduce costs so that we can move forward because all our costs have, gone up, electricity, fuel, like every other business. Can you suggest to me some way that council could continue running the Gladstone pool with its relatively low attendance at a reduced cost? Can you give me an idea?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Patterson. I think that there are a stack of strategies that we probably haven't sat down and looked at. We know that attendance is already on the uptake at Gladstone Pool. We know it sits in the middle of a tourist area, so we should be cashing in on that. There's a huge amount of things we can be doing. We can be approaching local businesses, for example, which I've already done. Can we approach local businesses? Can we find some funding there to upgrade the pool? The report doesn't state that council have undertaken any of this stuff. There's nothing in there about looking for state government or federal government grants, for example. Let's just pull back a bit and try to look at this situation to see how we can save this pool. If you had to put that pool there today, it would be probably around $6 million was the quote I had. So let's look at how we can actually save it, not lose it.
Thanks, you, Mr.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Yeah.
Councillor Patterson, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, another question.
Thank you.
I attended the meeting the other day down at the hall. Really great attendance. And there seemed to be a little bit of misconception about profiteering in the swimming pool. So could you explain to me how you think that the pool runs? Because I was told that at the meeting that, the pool's running for profit. Do you understand how a pool runs, like financially, through the council?
No, because there's nothing in your report that states how that runs. We're only working on the information we've got. We've had very little information from council about any of this stuff. But I would say I'm unsure what you're saying about profiteering. Who's profiteering?
That council was profiteering.
You're not allowed to ask.
Okay, I'll ask a rhetorical question. I don't know who's profiteering, but I'm not privy to that. I'm sorry, I'm not privy to that conversation. I know nothing about it. We don't believe that the pool has any kind of money hidden somewhere that's making a huge amount of money out of. Okay. I would say our only comment would be that Gladstone Pool was never designed for council or anyone else to make a profit out of. It's always been a community pool built by the community for the community with a small fee attached to try and keep upkeep. And I don't think it was ever designed as a profit-making facility. So I think we all need to start viewing it like that. It's an essential service that should be provided by local government. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. We'll have Councillor Riddington followed by Councillor Wyatt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oh, is my microphone on? Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Millard, and thank you to Rachel. I appreciate your speech. Just a question. How would you envisage a collaboration with council so that we can look at all aspects of cost savings as well as maintaining the pool? I know you did mention private enterprise, which is great. If you could maybe just expand on that a little bit. Just how would you envisage it, and how long do you think that would take?
It's difficult once again because the report is hard to tell what condition the pool is in. So the report doesn't state whether it's in amazing condition or whether it's in, absolute decline. We don't think it's in absolute decline by looking at it. So yeah, how long will that take? I'm not sure. In regards to corporate funding, and there is there's a report out by the Royal Lifesaving Society on the ageing decline of Australian swimming pools. So looking at that, they've looked at different ways and measures that councils and communities could actually look, with private, involving the private sector and council and community collaboration, which I think is what you're hitting on, which is fantastic. Just in response to that, there's a lot of things we can do. For instance, I've written to Nestle and Akubra, and I've asked them for assistance. Now, it's difficult for me as a community member to say, hey, we'll give you sponsorship and you can have this and that. I need council to sit down with those major companies. They're multinational companies. Nestle is huge. Akubra has a new owner. Yay. It could be really good. We need to be sitting down.
There's your minute, Mr. Millard.
Thank you.
Councillor Whittington, you have another question?
If that's all right, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I asked 2 questions and Councillor Patterson rightly pointed out that I should have asked one and then another one. Sorry, because I took up time in your minute. Okay. So how do you see the community going forward if we form a collaboration with council and other private enterprise entities? How do you feel that the public will support the pool?
I think it's pretty clear when you look around the Macleay how much love there is for that pool. Now, the financial stuff is hard work. So to hand that to a community and say, there you go, fundraise, I am quite aware of what that involves. So I think council or someone needs to take responsibility for that. But if they worked with the community and we could look at that kind of stuff and we could go to a meeting with council and with Nestle or with Akubra and sit down and say, hey, we've got this great idea. Why don't we cash in on the tourist attractions? Why don't we offer Akubra or Nestle a chance to put their livery up on around the town and make it look really good and do some sponsorship? And that front part of the building could actually even be turned into another retail space if we actually remodeled it a little bit. I think it's the case of spending a little to make a little. The other thing is the pool looks like a 1970s government department to me. It's terrible. Why aren't we spending some money on some pots and some deck chairs and stuff? And why don't we look at that space, like we look at parks and gardens, and Gladstone Park's a classic example of a makeover. Why don't we do that? Why don't we simply try to make it a bit of...
And that's your time. Thank you. On that question, you have another question, Councillor Whittington?
I do, if that's all right. I'm sorry to take up time.
I'm sorry, Councillor. I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you. You know how it's been such a wonderful heritage pool for Gladstone and the community. What about if it got heritage listed?
Not really familiar with heritage listing, but to be honest, if that attracts us some government funding, some state funding, then I say heritage list it tomorrow, because it sits in a heritage area. That part of the village is amazing. Can I say to the report on that? The new report states that we need to be careful to make sure the community have that space. We don't want another park in Gladstone. Don't rip that pool out and give us another park or an area. We don't need it. We need our pool. So there's no good saying, oh yeah, we'll give you that land. We don't want the land, we want the pool on it. It's no good to us. We've got a lovely park. We've got a hall. We've got everything we need in Gladstone. We just need our pool. So I think heritage list away if it can actually, if it works. And that town, that town is booming. You walk the streets of that town and we can make that pool something really special that one day you're presenting to the local government association and getting an award on it, I believe, if we just get in there and do it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, I thank you for your presentation as well. You addressed everything that I was going to ask you, but I just did want you to, in 1 minute, just outline the history of the Gladstone Memorial Pool. How did it get there? How was it funded? How did it end up in council's hands?
Good question. So the pool was opened in 1963 after 6 years and 10 months of fundraising from the community. The community obviously, I think, had the first £500 and purchased the block of land, and I believe a house was removed. They had a house removed off it. They then engaged in a stack of fundraising, and from people I've talked to, apparently they had like £2,700 or something, and they borrowed the rest of the money. They thought the pool would cost £7,500, but it cost £14,500. But from hearing from some of the older locals, they borrowed the money and they paid all that money back. So they had a loan and they repaid well. But what we need at the table is council, because we, at the moment, we can't promise, we can't sit down and do negotiation with the RSL or anyone about sponsorship. That's got to come from council. So we want to walk with you on that journey to suss this out and see where we can go.
Thank you. That's your question, Councillor Bain. Councillor Ferguson, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Millard. My question just comes back to those local companies that you did speak with. If I can just ask, how did you gauge their reaction? Was it positive?
So with Nestle, I phoned up and spoke to the operations manager, who sounded kind of busy at the time and probably sounded like he was in the factory somewhere and probably not concerned with me and the Gladstone pool as much as he would have liked to be, but he was respectful and basically said, yes, send me what you've got and we'll look at it. So we then prepared an email that I've emailed to him, and obviously there hasn't been a response, but assuming that Nestle being a multinational and assuming that somewhere within that company there's either a philanthropic body that perhaps sponsors and stuff like that, it might take some time. Happy to give him a call pending tomorrow's outcome and just see, whether we can move it forward or whether we can meet with him. But yeah, he was very, very pleasant. In regards to Akuba, I only sent the email the other day, and the reason for that being I was a little bit unsure with the changeover, whether Stephen Keir was still at the helm or whether the new owners had taken over. I did get that clarification from one of the councillors that Stephen has actually gone, so I actually was able to address my letter to Mr. and Mrs. Forrest. So we'll wait to see the outcome of that as well, and we have actually said we are happy to go with council to facilitate it.
Here's your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No, I thank you very much, Mr. Millard, for your extensive answers. Our next speaker is Mr. Gary Phillips, and he's speaking against 10.2, the aquatic strategy. Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Hello, thank you. My name is Gary Phillips. I'm a Gladstone resident and a regular pool user. I've lived in the Kempsey Shire for nearly 20 years, with the last 11 years at Gladstone, and that includes 12 seasons at Gladstone Pool. I have a vision impairment, I'm legally blind, and some significant health-related issues that limit exercise options. I require assistance to access the community. I would like to outline my at Gladstone Pool throughout that time. Firstly, as a manager of a local disability service, I provided programs for children, young people and adults with disabilities at Gladstone Pool, where water-based activities could be provided and managed in a safe and secure environment. It's a compact pool, not too deep, and all areas of the pool are well sited for supervision. I've accessed the pool as a grandparent, with grandchildren having swimming lessons and attending swimming club. As a community member, volunteering at swimming club, working on the barbecues, doing timekeeping. Just as a regular person, enjoying family time. And now, as a person with a disability, where I'm able to use the pool and walk laps to help improve and maintain my levels of fitness for recreation and enjoyment. I've looked through the draft strategy, and while it appears to be a comprehensive document, I do not believe that it reflects the accurate current usage and cost of operation of Gladstone Pool, nor does it take into account the cost to the community and, in particular, the disadvantaged and marginalised community members who would be severely impacted by any decision to close Gladstone Pool. Pool usage is noted in the plan as 2,500 people per season and references the impact of fires, flood and COVID over the last 5 years. My understanding is that this season, the attendance in the first 2 months is some 2,000 people. This would give a season total of 6,000 people. At this level of attendance, the subsidised cost would be reduced from $58.10 to about $21.67 per visit. This is without doing anything to increase pool usage. It also increases the percentage of usage of the people within the pool catchment area to well above the level at Southwest Rocks and Kempsey. The draft strategy executive summary states, across all facilities, opportunities also exist to substantially improve accessibility and environmental performance. Aquatic facilities are increasingly being recognised as providing low impact fitness opportunities for an ageing population. Enabling this form of use over and above sports and recreation swimming provides for a wider spread of the community needs, ensuring that pools are able to be easily accessed. Example, access ramps to pools and water of reasonable temperature is also critical for this to occur. That's the quote from the plan. I have not seen Gladstone Pool with both access, easy access, and reasonable water temperature at the beginning of the season in the same season. I believe this is the first season where pool blankets have been used to improve the water temperature, and it has made a huge difference in the first 6 to 8 weeks of operation. But there has not been any easy access stairs readily available to the pool for quite a few years. This excludes many potential users who have had mobility issues, and this has a negative impact on their life. The report also mentions the relative ease that people can travel to other pools, but it does acknowledge that not every user is able to drive. I am that user. The cost to drive to Kempsey Pool, 15 kilometres each way, is over $6 per pool visit. At 4 visits per week, that's an additional $25 per week out of my budget. And for somebody who is on a fixed low income disability support pension, that is financially unsustainable. The local bus service does not provide a suitable alternative transport arrangement. Further to that, as an extremely vulnerable person, I feel there would be a significant risk for my personal safety at Kempsey Pool and surrounds us. There are sadly groups of pre and young teens who engage in threatening and intimidatory behaviour toward me.
And that's your time, Mr. Phillips.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a question for you, Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phillips. Could you just please outline, I know you just did then, but time is limited. Could you please outline what would happen to you if Kempsey Pool was closed?
Kempsey?
Oh, sorry, Gladstone Pool was closed.
I wouldn't access the pool.
And how would you get anywhere to get to another pool?
I would not. I couldn't. I can't access Crescent Head by bus. I can't access Southwest Rocks easily by bus. And as I've alluded to, accessing Kempsey Pool is dangerous.
Yeah.
The children who have provided somewhat of a torment for me do frequent the pool during school hours as well. They may not be in attendance at school. So yeah, and it's not a safe environment. Honestly, if you look at it from my perspective, at Gladstone Pool, I can be seen from everywhere. I'm in the open. At Kempsey Pool, there's nooks, there's corners. The pools are unsafe for me. I need low level of water so that I can have my exercises. Gladstone Pool's great. Kempsey Pool's way over my head. The medium-sized pool is even deeper. It's just not a safe place for me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your presentation on people with disability. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No other questions, councillors? No, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips. We now move on to our fourth speaker, Rachel McDonald, and she's speaking against 10.2, the aquatic strategy.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for letting us all speak. I hope you can see me. I am going to read through this. I'm covering many points that have already been covered, but please bear with me. I want to draw your attention to the importance of children because they can't be here today to speak on their own behalf. I refer you to the human rights of the child, to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, 1989. It is an international convention, it's recognised, and it's been ratified by the Commonwealth of Australia. It binds its state parties, which includes Australia at the federal level, to implement and respect programs such as swimming programs. It covers, for example, the rights of the child to be heard, which is one reason why I'm speaking. The safety of children in this context to avoid mortality by drowning, to avoid impairment by near drowning, which we haven't covered today, causing morbidity such as damage to the brain, so acquired brain and other physical disability. Also, and that has a cost for the society as well, the development of children, their physical development, learning to swim, stroke and strength development, and their mental development, including their mental well-being, resilience, morale and confidence. The need for exercise and recreation, especially important in this digital age of screen time. The right of children to have access to facilities, and this is a must-have facility for our community, such as access to a local pool. And the alleviations of the cost to the family. We've also got the Family Responsibilities Convention. And look, that's all I'll say about conventions, but the Australian government has a duty, and I think federal funding should be something that we could tap into more if the council has not already tapped into it. I come from a grants application and acquittal background for the Australian Breastfeeding Association, and I've managed to secure over $600,000 for them over the years. So there are funds out there, I think, that could be applied. The draft aquatic strategy brushes over the importance of children in our community and the importance of facilities in a rural, regional area to all of the members of our community, not just our children, including, but also surrounding areas of Kinchela, Fredericton, Austral, Eden and others where children live as well. I believe the children are our future, but they are also our present. What I love about the children in Smithtown, where I live, on Main Street, is their confidence and their contentment. They ride their bikes, they fish and they swim. The aquatic strategy is relevant to swimming and fishing because children fish at the river and some swim at the river, and I see them come and go and I see them when I walk. And so they must be taught to swim. This is even more important because not only do older children who are confident at swimming fish at the river and they're at the jetty, but also often their younger siblings tag along, sometimes without parents, and they're precariously balancing on small concrete perches under the bridge and on the jetty and can easily fall in. So swimming schools and proficiency are necessary because our community is situated on a flood-prone area. And let's face it, there's always a gate around a pool and there's no gate around our river. The cost of closing the pool includes a high risk of children in the area drowning, and I think that's just cannot be denied. The devastation a community suffers when a child drowns is long, a grief period that's usually not overcome very quickly. There is a financial and emotional cost, which is long-term as well as short-term. We are emerging from a COVID period where we were taught to fear pools. So I think we have to have a bit of leeway into growing our pools, and the morale of our community and our community spirit needs to be reinvigorated, and our pool is one of those assets. It's not a fait accompli, this strategy, and it needs to be better thought out. Please go and rethink it. We don't have many facilities in Smithtown and Gladstone. One hall, a few parks with hardly anything in them, and our beloved pool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Any questions from councillors, please? No, I think you've explained yourself very well, and thank you very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Jeff Clark from Southwest Rocks, and he's speaking against the 10.6 Southwest Rocks Visitor Information Centre. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. The South West Rocks Visitor Information Centre has been in its current position for about 30 years. It sits right in the middle of the Maritime Precinct and is passed by everybody that enters that precinct to visit one of the other attractions, of which we have about 4. This year so far, there has been about 10,000 visitors come through the Visitor Information Centre. The costs, the precinct, of which I'm the president, around $30,000 per year to run the Maritime Precinct, including $6,500 in rent to the Crown Lands Department and approximately $14,000 in rates to council per year, of which we do get a rebate. The Maritime Museum is entered via the Visitor Information Centre, and it provides a huge amount of funds through a donation box located in the museum. These donations are imperative to help maintain the precinct, which we have to do under the terms of our lease with the Department of Crown Lands. We need the continued cooperation of council, and we need our rates rebate looked at moving forward. Now, volunteers. Most of the volunteers we have been there for several years. Their local knowledge and history are second to none. We also have a base of additional volunteers who are prepared to come in and boost the numbers already there. Now, the numbers already there, which are through council, have continued, have told me of their desire to continue and see the Visitor Information Centre thrive and move forward. Now, for about the last 2 to 3 years, council have been saying they cannot get the volunteer numbers to man the Visitor Information Centre. The precinct itself, with the art gallery, the arts and craft cottage and the museum, has in the vicinity of 70 volunteers. Now, to say that, you know, council can't get any volunteers for the information centre, I do find a little bit hard to believe. Most volunteers are regulars, so there is no time or cost involved in preparing rosters. Most of it is pretty much just a tick and flick, to use that expression, week after week, month after month. This week alone, I've had 2 people approach me wanting to volunteer in the information centre moving forward, 2 additional people. People come into the information centre wanting maps, brochures, and most of all, advice. Eyeball to eyeball advice on things to do, accommodation, as well as wanting brochures, maps, and the information provided by those volunteers is just invaluable. The precinct committee sent a letter to the General Manager, Mr. Milburn, in September this year, asking that we take over the running of the Visitor Information Centre, and there has been no discussion since in this regard. We did have a small meeting with a couple of council staff who advised us of the closure of the information centre, but apart from that, we have had no discussion whatsoever with council regarding alternatives. The big things about where it is now, it has full disabled access. We have ramps into the information centre, into the museum, and into the arts and craft cottage. Disabled toilets are just a mere 10 metres away. Defibrillators 10 metres away. Now, how is KSC supporting tourism? By closing this venue. The proposed new location of the venue, access is via 12 very steep and dangerous steps, very slippery in wet weather. There is no disabled or infirm access. There is very little parking. I think 1 or 2 spots. No disabled facilities. The operators are just too busy with caravans and bookings. They're not really interested except where caravan park is involved. So moving forward, we do have the expertise to run it. We do have a wish to run it with council's backing, and we just want to sit down with council and discuss that possibility moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
A quick question from me, if I may.
Yep.
You said that your present rates and charges from council is about 14,000,
Correct.
and there's a rebate. Can you tell me what that rebate is from council at this time?
No, because we don't know. Part of that rebate includes rent of the Visitor Information Centre, which is the front room of the Maritime Museum. Now, we don't have a split on that amount as such, but it is a yearly rebate, which we very much appreciate, but we're also a registered charity. So again, my question is to speak with council to see if that rebate is appropriate.
Thank you. Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I appreciate your presentation. Could you please just tell me what would happen if the council shut the information centre? What would be the impact on that precinct, please?
The information on the precinct would be quite large. The volunteers at the information centre, over the last 2 years, we've got them in a state of mind where every single person that comes in, they're also advised of the community art gallery, the toy boys who make children's toys, and the arts and craft cottage. Now, they're made aware of those facilities and pointed in those directions. Very important thing.
Thank you. Can I ask another question?
Certainly.
Please? So if we were to collaborate with your group of volunteers and your group and the whole precinct, how would you see that happening with the other facilities on that site?
We've already had indication where volunteers from at least one of the other, the president of one of the other community involvements there has indicated that not only would she volunteer, but she would utilise her volunteers to work in the Visitor Information Centre as well. So we're not in the slightest bit worried about gaining volunteers. And again, as I said, we've been offering to help council do this, but that's fallen on deaf ears for the last 2 or 3 years. We don't have any trouble getting volunteers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt, please.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I just want to be clear on the differentiation of what is going on at that property. So it's registered, it's on the State Heritage Register. There's 2 properties there. There's the pilot station and the art gallery, is my understanding. Is that correct?
No, there's actually, well,
Or 3
yes,
buildings.
there's 3 properties and there's the flagpole on the point.
And yeah, and that's all there. So the Visitor Information Precinct, the Visitor Information Centre, yep, that is situated within the museum complex in a room.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And when you say that there's like 10,000 people that have come into the Visitor Information Centre, do you also provide are your volunteers also servicing that museum? So you're looking after it and running the museum as well, or are you just purely talking about your volunteers and the 10,000 people as a Visitor Information
Volunteers tell people, as per the other entities within the precinct, that the museum is there. It costs them nothing to enter. And if they have any questions, they give them my phone number. So the volunteers themselves don't get in from day to day. However, they're on hand to give any help that's needed.
So there's not, so there is then another set of volunteers that run the museum complex. There's not.
No. I also just add that without the information centre being there, the museum could not afford to keep going, because it does help provide the maintenance costs of the entire precinct. We have no other way of funding. Crown Lands give us absolutely nothing. I'm afraid council don't give us a lot of help either. So we totally depend on our self-fundraising by donations to the museum and a book we sell called Tales of Trial Bay, which also adds to our coffers. But we are not for profit. And at the end of the year, we come out pretty much square.
Have a follow up?
Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part of this discussion, I think, and a question as well, is that you are volunteers working on state government owned land. You are a registered charity, and you are paying $6,000 to the state government to do their work for them. Is that correct? Is that how you determine it? Yep. Yeah. And I'm still a bit unclear, but I might ask this for clarification tomorrow, just to really pull apart what is visitor information service and what is the museum and what is the art gallery. And if the visitor information centre pulls out of the museum site, then there's no running of the museum. That's kind of what I'm hearing. And sorry, just a follow-up question then. You mentioned that you've asked council to run the visitor information centre. What does that look like in your mind? You running it, I mean.
Mr. Mike, just press your microphone button.
Pretty much as it is now, with the same bunch of volunteers and double the number added to make it run efficiently. Now, I've just been made privy to the council volunteer register for January, probably the biggest month of the year for tourism. They've cut it back to 1 shift per day for the entire month, citing lack of volunteers. Now, we just think that's ludicrous, because without them being open all day, it's just impacting on the whole precinct financially.
What kind of management is in place to the asset there is the museum and also the visitor information centre, but part of the asset there and the attraction is the museum. What active management is done on the museum? Is it curated?
Absolutely.
Are the displays changed?
Absolutely.
And how is this funded?
By volunteers, a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the star attractions of the museum is the original pilot boat for the Macleay River, which we have just repainted. Now, we got a $800 grant from Bunnings for paint and paint brushes and sandpaper. Volunteers from the precinct and the museum, including myself, got in, stripped back and repainted that boat just to save it. So it's 90 years old and it's a big part of the heritage of the Macleay Valley and the Macleay River and Kempsey. So everything we do is basically done by volunteers, except if we can put in for a grant. Council were good enough to give us a grant for a defibrillator. We had a grant to enclose part of the boat shed to stop it deteriorating even further for the pilot boat. So apart from grants, it is all self-funded. A lot of the maintenance is also done by our terrific group of volunteers who just get in and do it. So to lose that information centre, it would be a huge blow to the entire precinct.
Do you get sorry, can I go? Do you have funding or with the New South Wales Heritage Office?
Nothing. Oh, we have a relationship with them because every time we move or want to put a nail in or take a nail out, we have to get their permission. We want to remove the clothesline, the old Hills hoist at the back of the arts gallery. Can't do it. Heritage listed. No.
That's what I was
just had to repair our concrete at the back of the art gallery because a tree root had put it into a V shape and it was extremely dangerous. Heritage says we can't do it unless we replace it like for like. Now, we have got in our volunteers and done it ourselves. We've busted it up. We have relaid a slab. We have re-cemented it. We have put turf in at our own expense and our own labour just to comply with heritage. So they are very hard to get on with, and you'll be very careful what you can and can't do, which is basically nothing.
Thank you for answering those questions. I have experience in that space, so I understand what you mean. But thank you for answering those, and thank you for your work as volunteers to look after that heritage. Really, I mean, it's a state asset. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. I also commend what you just said. We've got Councillor Bain with a question. Thank you. He's online.
Yep.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Mr. Clark, for the work that you and your team do there. I've been there and seen the outstanding work. My question is about the Visitor Information Centre. Yeah. I'm just asking, do you direct people to other parts of the precinct, or do you direct people to other tourism opportunities within Southwest Rocks and other parts of the Shire?
Absolutely both. I mean, the Visitor Information Centre is there to assist. You're right.
Yeah, he wants to expand on how you do that.
Oh, okay. The Visitor Information Centre is there primarily to answer visitors' questions and give them help no matter what they want, whether they just want local information, whether they want Macleay Valley information, whether they want out-of-town information. We carry a lot of brochures for out of town. So the volunteers are trained to try and answer whatever questions people have. But at the same time, we say, well, you know, there is a nice museum here. Would you like to go and have a look at it? Or have you seen our arts and craft? Or have you seen our beautiful community art gallery over the road? But primarily, they're there to serve what people want out of a visitor information centre. And that's what they've been trained to do for many, many years. I'll also just add briefly, that those that don't know, the Maritime Precinct pilot complex is the only one remaining in the state of New South Wales fully intact.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I'd like to ask you a question too. You're the president of the Maritime Precinct Committee.
Yeah.
How many people are on that committee, and how often do they meet?
We are obliged to meet 3 times a year. We meet 4 to 5. At the moment, we have 20 active members.
Thank you. Since the mayoral minute was resolved at the 21st of November council meeting,
Yes.
how many times has staff sat down and worked or collaborated with that committee since the 21st of November?
Absolutely 0.
How many telephone calls have you received about collaboration?
0.
Any emails in that time?
No.
Thank you. There are no other questions.
And response to my letter to the General Manager 3 months ago, no response about collaboration whatsoever.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson has a question. Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, if it's all right. Thank you, Mr. Clark, for your representation today. There's definitely a long heritage in Southwest Rocks and the Macleay, that's for sure, with boating, surf life saving, etc., all attached. Mr. Clark, what does the state government, you may have already answered part of this, what has the state government said to you in response and your request to for funding to lease these premises from a state government organisation like the Maritime Museum? Right.
Sorry, we've never been offered funding. I have asked for rent relief in the past, and this was declined. We get absolutely 0 assistance from Crown Lands, absolutely nothing.
Okay,
Now,
so
can I just add here quickly
that
for the last 3 years, I don't know who's aware of this and who isn't, Crown Lands have been trying to hand the whole precinct back to council, and this has been toing and froing and bibbing and bobbing for about 3 years. So on that basis, Crown Lands would not renew our lease back in 2020, and the whole precinct is on a month-to-month lease.
Currently?
Currently.
Yeah.
Just has been since July 2020, just waiting on council to push the magic button to say, yes, we're taking it over. Now, again, we've had no dialogue regarding this.
So another question.
Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Let's talk about cost shifting by state government. Do you think this is another example of cost shifting by the state government to local council that are already struggling with rate relief?
Possibly. I believe it is a statewide movement they're trying to make. I don't think it's mandatory from what I know about it, which isn't a hell of a lot. But as I said, at this stage, it's been about a 3-year discussion and nothing sort of happens very often.
You made a comment earlier, and I might ask you about where council is proposing to not close their visitor information centre, but just move it to the caravan park. You stated that there's a danger there of stairs and stuff. Is that something that you've documented to the council?
Yes, we have. Some councillors who have visited the area are actually aware of it. They have seen it. There are 12 very steep steps out in the open, not even under cover, which even our current volunteers, we had an arrangement in place up until a couple of years ago where The key to the museum and the information centre was held next door at the Arts and Craft Cottage, about a 10-metre walk. Someone in their wisdom said that wasn't good enough, and the key now has to be returned and picked up daily at the caravan park. So our volunteers have to walk across through the War Memorial, across the lawn, and down these 12 steps just to get a key, and in the afternoon, the same procedure in reverse. Now, we actually had one of our volunteers resign only 2 weeks ago because she cannot negotiate those stairs anymore.
So I'd just like to finish with one last question,
Yep.
Mr. Clark. So you feel you've been let down by the state government in funding this operation through Crown Lands?
It's never come up as an issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Redigan, you have another follow-up question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, so if we're talking about cost shifting from the state government and the Crown Lands and Heritage Office have control over your precinct, and you pay $6,500 for the privilege of maintaining those particular properties, I just don't get it. Do you get it? Thank you.
We even have to pay for our own lawn mowing and things like that. We get absolutely nothing for that $6,500 except the right to be there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. I think there are no further questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Our sixth speaker is Mr. Dick Pearson. He's speaking for 10.8 on the agenda, the commercial pilot training agreement with Sportfly Aviation. Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Yeah, just before I start, Daniel, how did you go with that PowerPoint? Right, okay, thank you very much. The purpose of my talk on behalf of the Safe Kempsey Airport Action Group, being residents living in the vicinity of the airport, is more so it's a flag of convenience to make councillors more aware of differences in aviation training, and to asking to add a 0.5 to the suite of recommendations. I would think that councillors might have in the back of their minds, why were the locals so much against AIAC and their flight training operations, but we're not against Sportfly operations. I might just start by pointing out the heading of the agenda item is ambiguous and misleading, but not deliberately misleading. I know Mr. Peter Allen is now aware of this, but it talks about a commercial pilot training operation. Sportfly is not involved in training commercial pilots. It's a commercial agreement, should really be the heading of that agenda item. Slide one, no, just go back a slide, please. I'll give you the nod. There's a couple of classes of pilot training. There's general aviation and there's recreational aviation. The big difference between the two, the recreational aviation, such as Sportfly, are not training pilots for the commercial aviation industry. It's targeting local youth, air cadets, and that sort of young folk, and anyone else who wants to have a crack at it. You come out of that program with a flying certificate. You do not come out with a pilot's licence. The big differences are in the type of aircraft used, the different noise profiles from those aircraft. The recreational aviation doesn't involve repetitive low-level circuits over homes, as does the commercially orientated pilot training, and there is no multiple aircraft in the area in the circuit at any one time. Even if the number of light sports aircraft doubled, still wouldn't be a problem. Okay, slide 2, please, Daniel. This is just a couple of examples of small general aviation aircraft. You'd be familiar with the one on the left, your Cessna 172, pretty typical. The one on the right is a Diamond DA-40. That's the type of aircraft that are used by many of the commercial pilot training operations like AIAC. Both of these are 4-seater aircraft, single engine, fully enclosed. Slide 3, please, Daniel. These are examples of the recreational aviation aircraft. The previous GA stuff I've got to mention are actually administered by CASA under the Civil Aviation Act and regulations. Recreational aircraft are registered by a independent body under the auspices of Recreational Aviation Australia, and is done so with cash as OK. So on that screen there, you can see the yellow aircraft to the left is called a Foxbat, two-seater single engine, nothing much more than a lawnmower engine, and that's the type of aircraft that Sportsfly use. Over on the right are other examples of recreational aviation, your three-wheeled weight move trikes, parachute, backpack on your back with a engine. Why anybody would want to do that, I've got no idea. But you can see that collectively that's a totally different type of aircraft, totally different noise profile, and administered by a separate authority. Slide 4 is, like I said, I'd be asking that council include a 0.5 in the list of recommendations, and it doesn't affect any commercial agreement. It's just noting that the council notes that Sportsfly Aviation uses light sports recreational aircraft that operate under the auspices of Recreational Aviation Australia, which is authorised to self-administer sports and recreational flying activities, including aircraft registration, on behalf of CASA. Sportsfly Aviation is not involved in training commercial pilots. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Do we have any questions for Mr. Pearson, please? You don't seem to have any, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I now know more about Foxbats than I ever thought I needed to know. Thank you very much. We will now have our 7th speaker. It's Mr. Adam Ulrich. He's going to be speaking for 10.9, Macleay Valley Recreation Adventure Park update. Thank you, Mr. Ulrich.
Afternoon, everyone. As said, speaking in support of item 10.9 on tomorrow's agenda regarding the adventure park at Kempsey Airport and its subsequent demise due to being ruled unviable by the Department of Regional New South Wales. And I'll just refer to them as the department as I move forward in this. I stand here as one of the happiest men in the Macleay right now. I mean, Santa has arrived early in the Macleay and delivered one of the best presents to our community. It's fantastic news so close to Christmas that this project cannot go ahead. Personally, I'd like to go on the public record and extend my sincere thanks to the department for making such a decision. In all my time working in the government sector, I found it absolutely astonishing that the department has such a substantial stockpile of one of the rarest commodities on earth, that commodity being common sense, and then being able to apply that commodity in such a textbook manner to achieve this result. It is outstanding work that should be congratulated, as it has saved our community being exposed to an $11 million white elephant project that would have been added to the mountain of depreciation generated debt this council is trying to unravel as we speak. So Merry Christmas to all those staff in the department responsible for this decision. Now all we need is a copy of the actual report for the community to scrutinise, and I'll ponder the question as to why it hasn't been included in item 10.9. Secondly, I understand that this is an absolute PR disaster for this council, and on top of everything else, you just haven't had a real good trot of it lately, have you? Regardless of the decision, I again ponder the question as to why the lack of information being released to the community regarding this decision by the department hasn't been forthcoming. The community has every right to know how much taxpayers' money was wasted in the life of the project. Even if council doesn't have to pay any money back, taxpayers have a right to know the exact amount and the reasons for that expenditure. The community, through its own contacts, found out about this decision by the department a few weeks ago, yet the silence from council has been deafening. Most surprisingly, there's been no media release to the Argus, just an item buried in tomorrow's agenda. So I thought, in the spirit of Christmas, I'd gift you a headline for the Argus so you can start drafting something under White Elephant dies due to lethal injection of common sense. Thirdly, there is no indication in this recommendation regarding the proponent formally withdrawing the DA. This is the most important aspect of this process. So the community needs to be assured in this item tomorrow that process will be undertaken in a very timely manner and reported back to council when completed. We don't need a zombie DA hanging around at the airport. However, I have been assured that zombies can also be killed by lethal injection of common sense. Finally, I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'm going to enjoy it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ulrich. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions for Mr. Ulrich, please? There is none. So that's our final speaker, people in the public gallery. And I thank you all for your attendance here today. And you've served a great service to our councillors in giving us information to help us make decisions at tomorrow's council meeting. So thank you all for attending. And like Mr. Ulrich, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and have a happy holiday. And with their towels, I hope you have a good swim. Thank you for being here today. And I now adjourn the meeting while people leave, and we'll come back in about 5 minutes, Mr. General Manager, for our briefing.